do Sabrina the Teenage Witch and Buffy the Vampire Slayer have in common? Well, probably more than you knew about. And if you did already know this, then you're a super buff for both of those shows and series. I'm Morticia. This is Gomez and our roommate Slappy. We are of the Jekyllhydeclub, and if you're new, do subscribe, check out our spooky playlists, and for now, let's talk Buffy and Sabrina. These, actually before the show started, the first fact that we're going to discuss is they were both movies. And I think, in our esteemed opinion, they were both pretty lousy movies, so I'm surprised that the shows happened, because usually if a movie really bombs, nobody wants to touch that. And neither movie was that good, so I think it was a stroke of luck that they finally figured out the right niche for both of those and that the shows even existed. Both of them were movies sort of based on the shows, but the shows fleshed out and got a lot better. Which movie would you like to talk about first, Gomez, darling?
Oh, I could start with Sabrina.
Sabrina, I think the actress for Sabrina, Melissa Hart, was playing her in both the movie and the show, but Gomez even commented when we watched the movie that she looked older in the movie, which is weird because the movie was in 1996.
Yes, it was interesting. She had a different way of acting in the movie compared to the show. In the movie, she was seeming a little bit more reserved, a little bit more serious, and it should have made the movie deeper, but instead it kind of made it more dull. It's like she was too reserved to freely act.
It wasn't funny like the show either, and it wasn't good either. I mean, it doesn't have to be funny, but it just wasn't good. Like Gomez said, it was just a dull movie. The plot was shallow and silly without being funny. Just her being a teenager and trying to fit in with the teenagers and get this guy to like her and discovering she had magic, and it was spoilers, but just blah blah blah, very shallow, very boring, like you're reading Twilight but with Sabrina and no vampires. So I think that the show definitely kept it lighthearted, but obviously made it funny, and the plots were a lot better for a sitcom than the movie, which is interesting. The characters were somewhat different, so you see later how they got developed in the show. Livy was a different character. What was her name? Katie?
Katie Lamour.
Lamour. How corny is that? It wasn't.
Yeah.
You can only get away with corny stuff like that when you're being funny, and it wasn't funny, so it was just kind of painful, like cringeworthy. Definitely cringeworthy. And then she liked. She, as in Sabrina, liked this guy named Seth that Katie was dating, and then Harvey's kind of this dorky guy that likes Sabrina, and Sabrina never notices him, but then at the end they get together, blah blah, throw up, and magic a little bit.
Harvey is so clingy in that film version. Like it just, I just don't recognize him as the same character at all. It doesn't matter who plays him. It's just like I don't recognize.
The character was very different. Yeah, and the movie was just silly and not interesting at all. And like I said, I'm surprised that a show even got developed and came out of it. Somebody must have had some clout there, which I'm glad it did because we enjoy the show. But yeah, now before we discuss the next little known fact that you might not know about that Buffy and Sabrina have in common, let's talk about the Buffy movie, unless you had anything else to say about Sabrina.
I guess I liked maybe the ends in both versions. They were still played well in both the movie and the TV show, but still they didn't get enough development either in the Sabrina movie.
Yeah, any good parts of the movie didn't get shown that much, and the ants are always cool. They had a different last name, though. She was Sabrina
Sawyer in the movie and Spellman in the show.
Yes, different alliteration, but Sawyer wasn't as magical, obviously.
Yes. And even the magic itself, I guess it had all kinds of exaggerated elements in both the movie and the show, but I think the show managed, because it had time to develop it, it showed a nice transition where it seemed more natural, and in the movie it just sort of too exaggerated and too sudden for me. So that was my final comment on Sabrina the movie.
Yeah, it was just hard to really get into and not done well, I feel. And I could say the same about Buffy, except there was a little bit more depth in plot potential in the Buffy movie, except that it was so fast. It's like you're trying to cram, let's say, a whole 3-book series or something into one movie where you're going, okay, it's going too fast, I don't know what's going on. And plus, that just trying to shove too much in there also kind of gave it the shallow, not that interesting, not that easy to follow, not that good impression. I just was kind of bored and not really impressed through it as well. The actors were all completely different there. Very few facts were the same in the movie as the show. Again, it was shallow and not that interesting. There were no funny moments, really. So again, shallow is good if you're making it funny. If you're not making it funny, it's just boring. Buffy was still Buffy Summers, different actress totally, still a blonde, but I think the actress in the movie looked taller and whatnot. They had the same premise where she's like an airhead teenager in a different part of California, and she doesn't want to be a Slayer, and her watcher comes to tell her that she's a Slayer and blah blah. She doesn't want to believe it. Now that isn't Giles. He's Merrick, and Merrick is briefly mentioned, I think, in the show for a minute, but then nobody knows.
Yes, in the episode Becoming is his only appearance on the show. That's episode number 21 of season 1.
There you go. Go measure on it. Wikipedia, we love you. Our memory isn't that good. But yeah, and like the actors and everything are all different there. The vampires in the movie I actually do like better. Like they just look pale and they have fangs, and they don't get all monster faced, which I never really loved about the Buffy like show. I guess because they're trying to make them demonic, but I don't really agree with that specifically. But you know, hey, that was a difference. When you kill the vampires in the movie, they just die like people, which was kind of boring. Where in the show they turn to dust, which I like better. What else?
It was interesting how big the actors were as in the movie. To me, like Rutger Hauer playing the vampire Lothos, he was basically the action hero of the 80s and stuff like that. So
big names in that.
Yeah, Luke Perry from Beverly Hills playing Dylan. And,
which is funny because it was California too.
Yeah, that's right. And who else? David Arquette, who was married to Courtney Cox, both of them starring in Scream, of course. So, like, you think there will be potential? Like, I expected, I guess, more because, like, enough.
So big names, you think they could do a bigger movie, but I guess big names do not a plot make.
Yeah, they should have made it more epic. And the names even sound sort of epic, but without the depth with the acting and the plot, it sort of becomes even more shallow by contrast and less watchable in a sense, because there's such great expectation and potential.
Joss Whedon even said that the movie didn't really live up to the potential of what he had written, and Buffy didn't, you know, it was like a kind of like, okay, that's sort of it, but not really the girl. So, you know, he didn't think so either.
Yeah.
He gave them the script and then they made the movie, and it wasn't really like what he was seeing. So again, the movie was so lame. When I first watched it, I didn't know about Sabrina yet, and I was like, okay, I'm surprised this became a show. Now the Buffy movie, apparently, we didn't know about this until a few years ago, but it came out in 91, did not do well. It was bought by Dolly Parton's movie production company, which I didn't know she had, but I should, because Dolly Parton has everything. So yeah, that's cool. But that was like 91, then it was put on DVD at first in 92, the soundtrack was released in 92, then it was again, I think in 95, or then again in 2000 something, yeah, okay. But, so Sabrina's movie came out in 96, and Buffy's initially in 91, so she was first. And so they both had bad movies, they both had good shows that I'm surprised got to come out of the bad movies, since the movies were not successes.
I kind of liked the concept of Merrick. I like the idea of Watcher being immortal. In a sense, it makes more sense to some degree that somebody who is immortal himself would be able to predict vampires and resist them. Otherwise, it seems like almost an unfair battle. So I like that single aspect, and it's a pity that Merrick wasn't developed into something in the show.
Yeah, they made the Watchers more mystical in the movie when they do get to live hundreds of years and like deal with a lot of Watchers and a lot of Slayers in their lifetime. And yeah, I think it does explain the Watchers and make them more interesting.
And I think they even selected a really good actor. Donald Sutherland was very effective in that capacity, and of course he is a great character actor generally. So, but I guess I got biased by seeing Giles first. So I'm used to Giles, so it still feels strange not to have Giles.
Yeah, it's like, where's Giles? And it does take you a second to get into Merrick because of that, but he is a good character and a good actor.
Yeah.
Buffy has a love interest in the movie that is not a vampire. It's all really different. again, but it's just if you don't really expect to see the show on either, then that would help you enjoy the movie a little more. But they're both still really atrocious movies. Although I would say the Buffy plot had more potential if it had been done right than the Sabrina plot was just totally shallow and lame. I think the Buffy, if it had been made a few different movies and the points expanded upon more and developed more, could have been good. But I think the Buffy plot had some really deep points that were just kind of skimmed over and rushed through, so it made them look kind of shallow.
Yes.
Like, this could be really good if you just expanded, slowed it down, but when you go zip, zip, it's like, what was that? Like, okay. What was that? And then they're moved on to something else. So yeah, if you read the plot on Wiki after you watch the movie, you see more depth and more potential, and I don't think you understand as much in the movie as is supposed to be conveyed, because again, I think they're trying to cram so much in there.
Yeah, there might as well be different products where if you just see the movie, you might not even feel like watching the show if you expect some of the same, and then you realize that the show actually develops it, where the movie concentrates only on some of the superficial aspects that could appeal to the general public, romantic involvement and what else, and the show actually develops it where you feel like you can get into this world and like it.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, if Gomez kind of reiterates that again, that sentiment that if I had just seen the movie first and we had known about that first and not the show, I don't know how that would have happened since the show's so ginormous, but I just wouldn't have watched it. I don't. If anybody did see the movie first in the early 90s, I don't know like how the show got watched. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because I just would be like, okay, the movie was bad, not watching the show, like, you know.
Yeah.
So I even said that when we were watching it, I'm like, I can't believe they got a show deal after this. Like, if this was first, I just can't believe they got a show deal. And I say that on both. It was interesting how they had that in common. Now, for the next fact they have in common. Sabrina the Teenage Witch had an animated series in 2001 that she just was Sabrina. It had the Teenage Witch part knocked off. She was a 12-year-old. And Melissa's younger sister did the voice for Sabrina, and Melissa did the voice for the aunts, both aunts, which I didn't like as much. I didn't like her trying to sound like the aunts.
Yeah.
It was silly for me. It didn't work. She was also Melissa producing the show. And Salem was still the same. His voice was the same. Also, Sabrina was a cartoon from the Archies in the, I think, 70s.
Yeah.
And then they had a little animated thing for her in the 70s before, like, Melissa was around and stuff. So, or she might have been around, but she wasn't, like, she was a baby or something. So, you know, I didn't know that Sabrina was that old from the 70s and the Archies, but she was, and that was cute. And then the 2000 series. So Sabrina is, Buffy's movie came first, but Sabrina in general came first. So that's interesting to know. But did you guys know that Buffy actually had an animated series in production? You probably didn't, because I just discovered that accidentally today on Wiki while doing some research for this. Yeah, Buffy had a series, animated, that was supposed to come out also, interestingly enough, in 2001. And Joss and everybody had it together. The actors from the show were going to do it. They were doing the voiceover. They had a lot of funny shows written, a lot of really good production scenes. They were making it very animated, high-tech, as it were. And nobody wanted to buy it. It was not quite kiddish enough for kids. They didn't feel it was good enough to go on adult prime time for whatever reason. I don't know why they didn't just stick it as an adult cartoon like Family Guy or something. And Joss even said in an article review that I was reading, he couldn't believe he was just sitting there with bags of money trying to give them to people and nobody wanted it. And, you know, Buffy was so huge and so popular as a show that I'm surprised the animated series didn't take off. I don't understand. I would think Buffy was even more popular than Sabrina, and Sabrina's series took off. But again, maybe Sabrina's had covered the childlike aspect more, because she was 12 in her animated series. So I don't know like why it didn't get popular in the adult field, though. I get why it wouldn't sell to kids, but adults love Buffy so much you would think that the TV show stations that they were trying to sell it to would know that any adult would just eat up Buffy. If they're already a fan, they'll watch the animated series. They'll be glad to have more Buffy. So why that didn't take off, I don't know. Joss doesn't know. He was floored, and it's just fascinating. You think you get a potion for success all mixed up. It worked before. You try to pass it off again, and nobody wants it. And, you know, it wasn't that the fans didn't want it. It never got to air. So if you're wondering where you can see the Buffy animated series, I don't know, because it never got to air. Maybe they put some of the episodes up on YouTube or something. I should check. Maybe Joss decided to just throw some up or whatever. If so, we will leave a link below in the description. If there is no link below in the description, we did not find any Buffy animated series for you guys. So we hope you enjoyed those little known facts of what Buffy and Sabrina have in common. And until next time,
Stay spooky, my friends.